The following segment is sponsored by Northwest Honda Dealers.
Welcome to a special edition of KATU News. We're taking part in an unprecedented effort to raise awareness and stop the stigma surrounding suicide. Today, on every news station and in numerous newspapers and on many radio stations and websites, you'll see stories that are all part of our statewide media partnership called Breaking the Silence. We don't expect to solve the suicide crisis in our state in this next half hour, but we are here today to confront it. We're all tackling different topics in this week-long project. Here's our contribution. Kind is Better presents Breaking the Silence.
Constantly depressed, constantly suicidal.
I was feeling, I think numb is a good way to describe it.
Scared to go to school, stomach aches, crying at night.
Between classes and homework, books and bright computer screens, something has changed for this generation.
Kids deal with a lot of different things than we did.
Our kids aren't the first ones to experience depression, anxiety, bullying. Maybe you felt it from time to time. They aren't the first to fall into pain, so incomprehensible, the best option seemed to be suicide. But something has changed. For them, it's worse. More kids in this generation, your kids' generation, are dying at their own hands. According to the Oregon Health Authority, suicide is the second leading cause of death among Oregonians between 10 and 34 years old. Why? Why do they think it's reasonable to suffer in silence, to be bullied past the brink, to end it all, instead of asking for help? We asked them, why?
I would wake up and I would feel sad and I didn't know why.
Cody Welty is a suicide prevention advocate. We've interviewed him before. He was a major part of our youth mental health town hall in May of 2018. When he was in high school, he wanted to die.
It got to a point where I didn't feel like I had any options. I didn't feel like I could talk to anyone, and I tried to kill myself.
I know what you might be thinking. I've been depressed, I've been anxious, I've been bullied. Chin up, rub some dirt on it. If I could do it, you can too. But things aren't the same for kids these days.
In order to bully someone back in the day, you had to do it to their face. There wasn't this anonymity of being able to text them. And you had to see the expression and the hurt that you were causing.
Something has changed. OHA's biennial Healthy Teen Report from 2017 found more 8th and 11th graders reported feeling so sad or hopeless almost every day for 2 weeks or more that they stopped doing their usual enjoyable activities. 30% of 8th graders and 32% of 11th graders. In 2015, those numbers were lower, 26% and 29% respectively. Experts tracking the data tell us some of the numbers are up because more people are reporting, seeking help.
As much as we're changing the attitudes, I really see it as we've just started to move the needle on this.
But not enough. Oregon State Police run Safe Oregon, a tip line students can call when they're concerned about anything, threats, violence, mental health crisis. But they get one call, far more than others.
Our biggest call is bullying or harassment, and so the 2,600, about almost 1,000, just under 1,000 have been about bullying or harassment.
Bullying. The relationship between bullying and suicide is complicated. The Centers for Disease Control experts say they don't know if bullying directly causes suicide-related behavior. It reports most kids who are bullied don't die by suicide.
It has to be fixed.
But Elsa Nelson's 8-year-old son almost did.
The playground is like Beirut. It's not good.
She believes he was bullied often and believes her son's school didn't do enough to stop it.
He would tell me how they would be on the playground and they would play and the kids would start to hit him and chase him, and then when he fights back they would run and try to run from him and laugh, and then they'd call him names.
It got so bad and lasted so long, her 8-year-old son said he wanted to die, and 2 weeks later attempted suicide at school. He was found, he was saved.
He's 8. It's not okay. It's unacceptable.
Youth who report bullying are more likely to experience suicide-related behavior than those who don't.
Them making fun of me made other people join in the group.
Josue Velasquez Silva goes to Centennial High School. He has a speech impediment, but he was brave enough to talk to us about bullying.
I raised my hand, to ask a question, and someone made a joke about how I talk since, I have a speech impediment. And they kept making fun of me afterwards, after the teacher was done talking and other stuff. And from then on, it kept happening every week. As it started to get more meaner and more aggressive to me, I was starting to second guess myself, being self-confident about how I spoke, how I looked, and other stuff in my life.
I've seen a lot of hurtful comments and stuff at school and in classes.
Josue is hardly alone. Gresham High School's Kendall Beam sees it all the time, up close and personal.
Well, I remember these girls walking past me and saying that I was fat and that I would never, no one would ever love me and I would never be in a relationship, and it was really hurtful.
That was in middle school. She's a senior now, headed to U of O in the fall, on to bigger, better things, and yet she remembers that one day.
My confidence went down so low, and I was like, what if everyone else thinks this? I don't want everyone else to have that perception of me, or if I'm the only one that doesn't think this.
For Jessie Mai, it goes back even further. In second grade, she found herself the target of a bully on the bus. He made fun of her, mocked her daily, even punched her. She tried to put a stop to it, telling her school counselor, but
I kind of felt powerless because afterwards she kind of just brushed it off by saying oh, I'm pretty sure he was just flirting with you.
Her bully's words seeping into her brain.
And I kind of believed him too, just when he said you're nothing, basically, you can't really do anything to me because I'm big, you're small. And that I kind of lived by that for a while.
Even now, about a decade later, she can't forget.
I guess I just didn't feel that didn't really matter, basically, to an adult that time. And since that happened, I didn't tell my mom either, because I don't think she knew how to handle the situation.
To make it worse, gone are the days when the bullying stopped, when you went home. It's a whole different ballgame now.
And what we found is that 62.2% of tweens and 70.5% of teens experienced cyberbullying, either as a bully, a victim, or a witness.
Tanya Jordan works for Bark, an app that alerts parents to dangers in their kids' online world. Cyberbullying is just one danger, and it's more sinister than ever.
Anonymity enables teasing without confrontation.
And with the world accessible by phone, something kids are glued to, there's no escape.
It's one that I've heard directly from teenagers, is that it follows me everywhere.
The kids back that up.
It's a lot easier to say something through your phone than right face to face with someone. So that gives people more confidence to be mean.
But some students aren't content to wait for it to get better.
I was inspired to learn to do something pretty early on in my life.
Amy Sloan is a lead volunteer at Youthline. She answers the phone when kids call the hotline looking for help.
Well, last year we got over 13,000 calls, and just about 400 of them were related to bullying.
She's picked up on some trends when people call Youthline.
Most of the time when I talk to people on the lines, they don't actually identify it as bullying themselves. They just kind of explain an experience that's going on, and something in our minds goes, wait, hang on, that's bullying.
It's an interesting observation. Are kids who are bullied less likely to come forward because they don't recognize it as bullying?
It goes beyond the, give me your lunch money. It goes into cyberbullying and emotional bullying and exclusion.
Or because of the stigma surrounding it.
It feels like there's a lot of avoidance around the word, and I think that that's kind of happened as we've grown up. People have tiptoed around it a lot and made it seem like a bad word. You're not supposed to say it.
Or is it simply two sides of the same coin?
I have known people who have just not been taken seriously because they don't fit that cookie cutter image of what bullying looks like.
But regardless of the method, bullying can have serious emotional consequences.
I think there's a lot of fear as a parent. I know I'm afraid that my child's being bullied.
Tyson Payne is a behavioral health clinician at Providence.
Yes, I do see a lot.
Talking about bullying is a big part of his job.
A lot of times with younger kids, it does come out as more like physical symptoms of headaches or stomach aches. With teens, it's more apparent low self-confidence or anxiety or depression.
All of it can last well past childhood.
Oh yeah, what research shows is that the bullying can impact kids throughout their adulthood with lower self-esteem, higher incidences of anxiety or self-harm or even suicidality.
A study released earlier this year out of Europe found teens who are bullied often could experience physical changes in their brains. Researchers analyzed the brain scans of almost 700 14 to 19-year-olds. About 5% of them were victims of chronic bullying, and by the time they graduated, had reduced size in 2 key parts of the brain. Those key parts help regulate motivation, attention, and emotional processing. Researchers don't know how long it lasts, but they agree with Tyson Payne.
The biggest thing is to recognize that it's bullying and then talk to an adult. There is more information out there about bullying, and it is a symptom of often other pain that children are feeling. And I think one of the things why it's talked about more is that there are a lot of things that teachers, systems, and parents can do about it.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Elsa Nelson's son is doing better. The bullies have laid off, and he's spending a lot of time with his new best friend. But she hopes his close call will convince parents to confront bullying.
So if somebody doesn't break the cycle or at least say something or try to change something, or it's going to keep happening.
We can't just think about how to stop bullying. We also have to think about how it started.
Bullies don't just become bullies for no reason.
Crystal Wilson calls herself a reformed bully. She spent much of her childhood starting fights, shoving kids into lockers, and being mean. Now, after years of reflection, she knows why she did it.
I bullied everyone. Boys, girls, teachers, pretty much anyone in my path when I was angry.
Hear her story coming up in just 3 minutes.
KATU. The following segment is sponsored by Northwest Honda Dealers.
You can change and become everything you weren't. You can flip everything, make a difference. You know, kind of the bully turned advocate that now wants to save the bullies.
Crystal Wilson calls herself a reformed bully. Now that she's a mother and sees how kids treat each other, she's reflecting on her own behavior growing up. And now her goal is to reach out to bullies and show them kind is better. This is the story of Rockabilly.
My name is Billy, and I was a bully. Before you judge me, please listen to my story.
Crystal Wilson, who wrote it, calls herself a reformed bully.
I bullied everyone. Boys, girls, teachers, pretty much anyone in my path. I held everything in and exploded on people. I was expelled from 3 schools. I have over 200 referrals and write-ups.
She finally came to terms with it as an adult.
I would slam kids into lockers and laugh. I would start fights with girls just for looking in my direction. It was a lot like wanting to fight everyone for no reason at all, except in my mind I did have a reason. I realized I was a bully.
This is a letter she read to the Gladstone City Council because now she's trying to turn her negative past into a positive future for others.
Bullies don't just become bullies for no reason.
She realized it was a reaction created out of pain.
I was hurting, so I wanted to hurt others. This is usually how bullying starts. Someone's in pain, so they focus on hurting on others to distract them from their own stress, pain, and problems.
She knows she can't change the effect she had on people while growing up, but now wants to be an advocate for kindness.
Now I want to be known for who I am today. I want to be known for standing up for those who are being bullied and to help the bullies who may not have anyone to talk to.
Crystal's promoting involvement and encouraging people in the community to take time and be a mentor for kids, all kids.
Like the bully needs just as much listening and just as much crash control as the kid getting bullied.
She says she learned her lesson and hopes others can learn from her mistakes.
I want them to know the power of kindness, and I want them to know kind is better.
Joining me now is Dr. Eugene Nicholson, a pediatrician at Kaiser Permanente. So tell me, how often do you see or treat bullies versus those who've been bullied?
Yeah, in fact, all the time. Bullying is much more common than people think. In fact, according to a national survey, a third of kids report being bullied, but a third of kids anonymously report bullying as well.
So what is the common reason somebody becomes a bully?
Bullying is really complicated. There is no one profile that really describes every bully. Very often, bullies are dealing with some sort of adversity. Could be anxiety, depression. Really commonly, there's social stresses going on at home or in the community.
So it comes from something more often than not, if you're not seeing as many problems with kids who are in a well-adjusted environment.
Absolutely. I'll say I've never met a kid who was bullying who was well-adjusted, happy, and grounded. Yep.
So what does a bully get from bullying? Does it make them feel better?
That's a good question. There's probably various things a bully would get from that type of behavior, but it seems to come from a kind of validation, of feeling more powerful than somebody else.
So what is your advice when you see this kind of behavior in your office?
Well, okay, so one of the most important things I like to point out to parents, to teachers, to everyone involved is we really need to stop by avoiding, we need to avoid labels. So labels, calling somebody a bully is actually doing them a disservice. Kids are in the midst of identity formation, and they're really believing what they hear about themselves. So what I like to say is, here's a kid who is bullying. They are not a bully. I like to keep a growth mindset in mind, so that these kids, we know that they can change, and we know that when we address the underlying difficulty that they're going through, that they can be just like any other kid.
So labeling can be just as destructive, really.
Absolutely.
Are you seeing this more in your office than maybe in the past?
It's hard to say. There's certainly a lot more awareness about bullying. So I do talk about it a lot.
The impact of social media maybe in gaming?
100%. So social media is just a whole new avenue. It's not actually the most common avenue, but it's very hurtful. And it only takes a few seconds and a few characters to be very mean.
So does bullying point to potential future problems as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So bullies, just like kids who are being bullied, really need help. They are kids who are suffering from anxiety, depression, from poor coping mechanisms. They're kids who need counseling, and they need a lot of social support.
Dr. Eugene Nicholson, thank you so much for your time. Lincoln,
thank you.
To you.
Well, we've talked a lot about the importance of checking in with your kids to make sure they're not the victim of a bully. But have you ever asked if your child might be bullying others? StopBullying.gov says there are two types of kids who are more likely to bully others. There are kids who have a lot of friends, social power, and are overly concerned about popularity, and isolated kids who may be depressed, anxious, or have low self-esteem. Children might be more likely to bully others if they're aggressive, easily frustrated, have problems at home, think badly of others, have a hard time following the rules, see violence in a positive way, and have friends who bully others. Now, even if a child isn't directly involved in bullying, they could be playing a role when they witness it. StopBullying.gov says kids who assist may not start bullying, but join in when someone else does. While kids who reinforce, they give the bully an audience, laughing or supporting the actual bully. And then there are outsiders, bystanders who see what's going on but don't do anything to stop it. StopBullying.gov has resources to help teach kids how to be more than a bystander.
And while bullying often happens at school, sometimes the biggest bullies are kids' own siblings. Think about it. Sometimes kids spend more time with their siblings than with their parents, classmates, or friends. Experts say sibling conflict is natural, but it becomes something more when aggressive behavior is repetitive and one-sided.
They might see escalating physical and verbal aggression. They could see rigid roles in the family, with one child taking on the role of the perpetrator and the other child the victim, and seeing those as being entrenched rather than changing and going back and forth, which would be more conflict.
Dr. Kyle Johnson from OHSU says 40% of children report being bullied by siblings once a week. Peer bullying occurs in about 23% of kids.
Well, this topic has gotten a lot of attention from lawmakers in Salem.
And coming up, how they're hoping new legislation could save lives.
Portland and Beaverton.
The following segment is sponsored by Northwest Honda Dealers.
Right now, lawmakers in Salem are trying to find ways to help our kids face mental health challenges and those at risk for suicide by focusing on our schools.
On a recent edition of Your Voice, Your Vote, Steve Dunn talked to an Oregon legislator and a school district superintendent about the Oregon Safe to Learn Act and how that bill could help in the suicide crisis.
We have good intentions, but I'm afraid that school leaders and teachers, classified staff, they're overwhelmed with the current situation.
Dave Novotny is a member of the Oregon Task Force on School Safety, and he led the effort behind the Oregon Safe to Learn Act. He says our schools lack the resources necessary to help all the kids who need it.
They need technical assistance, training, and support to make a significant difference in combating youth suicide.
Representative Sherry Helt, a Republican from Bend, is on the Joint Committee on Student Success, and she supports the bill.
The crux of the problem is we don't have enough teachers, we don't have enough counselors, and we don't have enough people in our buildings.
The bill would create 15 full-time positions in different regions across the state to support school staff and administrators in all the Oregon school districts to combat the suicide crisis, bullying, and help with youth mental health. The program would cost $3.87 million over a 2-year period. Lawmakers will have to find a way to pay for it.
This is a crisis that is gripping our state and our students and our families, and we really have to make a change. And we're committed as a legislature to making sure that we do so.
Now, last week, the Joint Committee on Student Success put out their proposal for an extra $2 billion in spending for Oregon schools. Included in that proposal is the Safe to Learn Act. Lawmakers are currently looking for ways to pay for it. That could mean additional taxes on corporations. You can watch the entire interview about the act right now on KATU.com in the Your Voice, Your Vote section.
Well, sometimes all it takes to help someone is to be kind. As part of our Kind is Better series, we've also launched the I Will campaign. The idea is to get people to commit to being kind in specific ways. You can post what you'll do on the Kind is Better Facebook page.
As always, we want to remind you there is help and hope. The National Lifeline is a good resource. Call them anytime at 1-800-273-TALK or text HOME to 741-741. You can get more information at suicidepreventionlifeline.org.
Well, we hope you've found some value in this special report. It means a lot to us to be able to cover these stories, and it's KATU's mission to offer insight and hope to our viewers. In that, we're not alone.
We encourage you to check out all of our content from all the news partners in this project on the topic. We've compiled it all at breakingthesilenceor.com. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.